the truth to fight with. They got nothing but gas.
No, I don't beg to be forgiven for something I didn't do.
Why can't I get a decent record player? Are they afraid I'm gonna electrocute myself and die on the wrong day? Or... Warden, is there some word now?
Barbara, the federal appeal has been denied.
Take deep breaths. It's easier.
How would you know?
Barbara Elaine Bonnie Wood Graham was an American criminal convicted of slaying. She was put to her end in the gas chamber at San Quentin Prison on the same day as two convicted accomplices, Jack Santo and Emmett Perkins, all of whom were involved in a robbery that led to the slaying of an elderly widow. Nicknamed Bloody Babs by the press, Graham was the third woman in California to be punished by gas. Her story. Barbara Graham was born in 1923 in Oakland, California. She had a difficult and miserable childhood. Her mother was sent to a reformatory when she was only 2 years old, and thus Barbara was raised by neighbors and got little education. As a teenager, she was promiscuous and in trouble with the law. She was sent to the reformatory where her mother had also been an inmate. She was released in 1939 and tried to make a new start for herself. She got married and enrolled in a business college and soon had her first child. The marriage was not a success, and by 1941 she was divorced. She was jailed for 2 months in San Diego for lewd and disorderly conduct. She married again, but this marriage lasted only a few months. In 1944, she served a jail term for prostitution. Her friends were mainly criminals who were involved in prostitution and gambling. Barbara liked nice things and also, perhaps surprisingly, was said to enjoy classical music, but she also liked gambling and drugs. Life was steadily going downhill for her. She had a job as a waitress in a cocktail bar, but soon went back to prostitution to earn a living. In another attempt to live a decent life, she worked for a while as a nurse in Nevada. She married for the third time in 1951, but this didn't last, and in 1953 she met and married Henry Graham. She had another child by Graham, her third, a boy called Tommy, who was 2 years old at the time of his mother's passing. Henry Graham was addicted to illegal drugs and known as a hardened but low-level criminal. Through him, Barbara met his friends Jack Santo and Emmett the Weasel Perkins, both with criminal records. She started an affair with Perkins, who told her about a 64-year-old widow, Mabel Monahan, who was alleged to keep a large amount of cash and jewelry in her home in Burbank, California. Monahan was a retired vaudeville performer who had previously worked the circuit in the area. Her ex-son-in-law was 74-year-old Luther B. Scherer, a multimillionaire who was well known through his ownership of various gambling clubs in locations such as Palm Springs and casinos in Las Vegas. It is speculated that he had deep ties to various crime syndicates. Monahan's daughter Iris had divorced Scherer 2 years prior and received the Burbank residence in the divorce settlement. Iris shortly thereafter married a different man and moved to New York, leaving her mother Mabel Monahan to reside in their former home. Monahan and Scherer had remained close friends after the divorce, and their continued friendship piqued public interest, gossip, and rumors that would later prove fatal. One rumor that was widely circulated amongst criminals and in local bars was that Scherer, due to his deep trust in Monahan, had left $100,000, which is equivalent to about $1,044,292 in 2022, cash stashed in a safe within the residence. On March 8, 1953, Graham had dinner in the San Fernando Valley with Perkins, Santo, True, and Shorter, a safecracker. Shorter stated that he initially did not want Graham to participate because she was a dame, but Perkins convinced him that it was the only way Monahan would open the front door. On the evening of March 9, 1953, Graham reportedly gained entry by knocking on the door and asking to use Monahan's phone due to car trouble. Once Monahan opened the door for Graham, Perkins, Santo, and True came in behind her, followed later by Shorter. Shorter claimed that when he entered the home, Monahan was already bleeding and her mouth was gagged. The gang tore up Monahan's home looking for the safe, money, and/or jewels, to no avail. True stated that Graham handed a gun to Perkins and told him to knock her out. Shorter claimed at this point he threw Perkins to the floor and convinced True to remove the gag because he noticed Monahan was having trouble breathing. True did not mention these events and stated that Graham began to viciously beat Monahan. After the gang left, Santo assumed Monahan was lifeless. However, Shorter, once alone, purportedly called for help from a payphone. The address given to the operator was incorrect, and Monahan was discovered 2 days later by her gardener. The robbery attempt was a futile effort, as nothing of value was found in the house. They would later learn at trial that $15,000 in jewels and valuables, about $156,630 value in 2022, was located in a purse in a closet. Monahan's daughter Iris offered a $5,000 reward for information leading to the arrest and conviction of her mother's slayer. So according to True's testimony, Barbara lost patience and began to pistol whip the old lady and then suffocated her with a pillow. Barbara, Perkins, and Santo were soon arrested. True gave evidence against them in return for immunity from prosecution, and they were all three convicted and sentenced to their end. There is much disagreement as to whether Barbara was innocent or guilty, or partially guilty, by virtue of being involved in the slaying. She did herself no favors on remand in prison by trying to bribe a fellow inmate to give her an alibi. The inmate was a plant, a policewoman. Barbara also tried to bribe another policeman to say she was with him on the night of the slaying. This destroyed her credibility in court.
There are always jobs.
For men, there's jobs. You got track walkers, longshoremen. Nobody cares if you're on parole, but you gotta be a man. Perjury.
When questioned about this at the trial, she said, "Oh, have you ever been desperate? Do you know what it means not to know what to do?" Inevitably, the jury found all three guilty and they were sentenced to their end. Barbara's last moments. Barbara was sent to the California Institute for Women at Corona, from where she would be driven to San Quentin to spend her final hours. The California State Gas Chamber was housed within San Quentin and was a steel capsule painted pale green and containing 2 perforated metal chairs for the condemned.
I got the truth to fight with. They got nothing but gas.
No, I don't beg to be forgiven for something I didn't do.
Why can't I get a decent record player? Are they afraid I'm gonna electrocute myself and die on the wrong day?
Barbara, your best bet is a direct appeal to the governor. Ask for a commutation.
Let's move it. Cuff her. It's cold and I haven't had breakfast.
Will you tell him, Coach? Got any leg irons back there?
Shut up.
Goodbye, Barbara. Good luck. Miss McCool will take you to San Quentin.
Her punishment was originally scheduled for 10 a.m. on the 3rd of June, 1955. She prepared herself and dressed in a beige wool suit and brown pumps and had been allowed lipstick and earrings. Due to a last-minute appeal, her initial punishment time stayed until 10:45. At 10:43, she was being prepared when a second stay was granted, this time until 11:30 a.m. Barbara was very upset by these stays. She had prepared herself and could not understand, why do they torture me? I was ready to go at 10.
There's not a judge in this country that wouldn't respect him. They're gonna listen to Al. How long do you think it's been?
I'm not sure.
Well, I mean, it's 2 hours. Long time, huh? Yeah, but that's a good sign. That's a good sign, I know. See, Al is a fantastic lawyer. Warden, is there some word now?
Barbara, the federal appeal has been denied.
At 11:34 a.m., the punishment finally got underway. Barbara was led from the building cell blindfolded and strapped into one of the 2 chairs in the gas chamber. She had requested the blindfold so she wouldn't have to see the witnesses. In a situation like this, you don't moan, you don't beg, you don't plead. You try to be a woman. She was accompanied to the gas chamber by Father Edward Dingberg, San Quentin's Catholic chaplain. Joe Ferretti was in charge of the punishment, and it was his job to strap her into the chair. Her original last words were, "Good people are always so sure they're right." Advised that taking a deep breath after the cyanide pellets were dropped would make her end easier, she replied, "How the hell would you know, you silly rascal?" The cyanide pellets were dropped at 11:36, and she was pronounced deceased at 11:42 a.m. Barbara strained against the straps and threw her head back as far as it would go, remaining in this position until she became unconscious and slumped forward. She passed relatively easily, unlike some gas chamber victims. Some 30 official witnesses, including reporters, plus 20 guards were present in the viewing area. One of the policemen who witnessed her punishment, Detective Ed Cassidy, told reporters afterward that her passing had been much easier than Mabel Monahan's.
breaths, it's easier.
How would you know?
Barbara's nurse gave me this. You're not supposed to get it till after, but I'll be off duty after.
Barbara's body was claimed by her husband, Henry Graham. 3 hours later, the two were put out too, side by side. Barbara got lots of media attention and was dubbed Bloody Babs by them. She never showed any remorse for the old lady's demise and was hardly most people's idea of a nice girl, but many still believe she was framed for a crime that she didn't commit. Media on Barbara. 2 films were made about her, both called I Want to Live. One starred Susan Hayward, and the other starred Lindsay Wagner, and both are very moving. Hayward won the Best Actress Academy Award for playing Graham in the 1958 version of the movie, a fictionalized version of events that suggests that Graham was innocent, since it was based on letters Graham wrote to a journalist. The film is from Graham's point of view and includes details differing from real life, in particular, the manner in which the police found and arrested Graham. Interestingly, when Barbara was interviewed on The Row, she told the reporter, "If I have to spend the rest of my life in prison, if I have to serve more than 7 years, I want it the way it is. I'll take the gas chamber. Maybe that will be better for my kids," of which she had 3. Barbara described herself as paying for a life of little sins. Only one more woman was to go to California's gas chamber, Elizabeth Ann Duncan, in 1962, and only one other woman was punished in this way in America between 1955 and 1984. Barbara was the 3rd woman to be put down in California this century, and one of 9 prisoners to go to the gas chamber there in 1955. That's all for today's video. We'll see you next time.